Welcome, everybody, to the second to last episode of IDTALK4ED Educators Live, the show for the unsung heroes of education. I'm your host, Sarfo-Mensah. And if this is your first time tuning into the podcast, I welcome you and hope that today's episode is one that will have you come back and listen to some past episodes. And if you're a returning listener or viewer of the podcast, as always, I welcome you back and hope that today's episode is one that you will find informative, enlightening, and as always, insightful. So before we get into the final main event, people, if you are on YouTube, please hit the red subscribe button so you can get future notifications on new episodes of the podcast. Also, if you would like to financially contribute to this podcast moving forward, there are four ways in which you can do so. If you're on WhatsApp, you can use our handle $IDTALK4ED. If you're on Venmo, you can use our handle @KwameSM. If you have a PayPal account online, you can access our URL paypal.me/KwameSM. And for those who have been supporting us for the past 6 years from day one, and you've benefited from this content that we share on Identity Talk, please consider being a forum member. It's our exclusive membership space for the Identity Talk community. Over there, you'll be able to get access to early episodes. You'll also get some bonus episodes that will be exclusive to you all with the membership. And you'll be able to get discounts on merch and other digital learning resources that we provide through that Identity Talk network. So to learn more about the membership tiers, you can go to our main website at identity-talk-for-educators.com. And for those who love to read and grow as educators, you can get my newest book, Learn to Relearn, Supporting Identity in a Culture-Affirming Classroom. It is out now at all online book retailers. You can also feel free to leave a review if you love what you read. Consider doing that on Goodreads, Amazon, anywhere where you're able to leave a book review. And if you're someone that has no idea what Learn to Relearn is, you want to learn more, you can go to our main website at learntorelearn.com. Thank you all again. So, for this final episode, I have not one, but two amazing guests who are going to share their stories of how they got into this international school space and how they're continuing to do some amazing work, particularly in the world of inclusion within the international school in Kenya, and other things that they will share about personally. So, without further ado, I want to bring on our final guest for this podcast. So we have Sally Ratemo and Donica Merhazion coming on this podcast to share their stories, how they met, and how they continue to do this important work that we do in this international school ecosystem, among other things. So let's bring Sally and Donica on. Boom, boom. How are y'all doing?
Hi.
Good. Hi.
Yes, great to have you all.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Yes, yes, yes. So just to give our listeners context, I actually met Sally and Donica at the SENIA conference in person in Cambodia early in the year.
Right.
And I actually was able to sit in their presentation where they talked about some of the life-centered education work they do within their international school in Kenya. And I was just blown away by their presentation. And thankfully, they returned the favor, came to my presentation, and I was appreciative of their support. And I said, you know what? I need to just follow what they're doing. And I've been able to, do that from afar since then. And it's been amazing to see how they've been able to continue on the good work they're doing at their school. So I just felt like it was important to bring them on to share their stories.
Thank you.
Yes. So usually with the podcast, we always like to start from the beginning. And we have a bit of a East African connection. So when I first got back on the motherland, our first destination was in Addis. So we actually were in Ethiopia for about 3 years. So that's how I know Donica and I, we connect there.
Yeah.
And then I actually have family from Kenya. So my sister-in-law is actually half Kenyan, half Ugandan. So we actually have family in Kenya, in both Nairobi and Mombasa, and also some in Kampala. So that's my East African connection there. So it's great to have you all. But I want to start off by asking this question, and it's pretty open-ended. What inspired each of you to want to become educators? And you can feel free to share a little bit about your early childhood and background. So whoever wants to go first.
Sure, I can plunge in first because I know Sally will have a better story. So I better go in there quick. Right, Sally?
Go for it.
It's actually my son, Gabe, my middle child, is the person who inspired me to become a teacher. I wasn't always a teacher. I worked in communication and did many other different things, but he struggled in school when he was very little and found his way eventually. But when he was in about kindergarten, just about to get into his first grade year, an IEP meeting was called. I didn't know much about what special education meant, but in that meeting, my husband wasn't able to attend, so I met with the school psychologist, the classroom teacher, the learning. There was just a whole team of people facing me, and I remember just feeling very overwhelmed because they were talking about a lot of acronyms that I had never heard before and describing a child that just didn't sound like my son. And then I decided that, it was a few months later, I just stopped working and I went to get master's in both special and general education. And every time I enter a classroom, I'm just teaching another Gabe and just wanting to make sure that all kids get what they need and that they're seen for who they really are. And thankfully, he's doing really well and has finished school successfully. And I just don't, that was the moment where I said, I need to get into this field, primarily to understand his story and how I could help him as a mother. And it just turned into the most beautiful calling I've ever had. It's awesome.
Amazing. And then
And
how about you,
an awesome musician, and he's doing so wonderful.
Yes.
Yes. How about you, Sally?
I think I fell into education on accident, quite honestly. After high school, I was pre-med, and I don't know, that just didn't work out for many reasons. And earlier on in life, I had a neighbor who was born disabled. She had CP, and then there was a fire, and in the fire, she got burnt and became even more disabled. And so I remember just walking home from school, and I would hear her from so far away watching for me and wanting, like, come say hello. And so every day I would leave, school excited to go and see this child. And that was my initial, like, oh, I could do this. Even when I went into pre-med, that's what I wanted to do. And then after not going in for pre-med, I wandered around for a while, just trying to figure myself out. And I ended up at Eden Prairie High School in Minnesota. And I was a paraprofessional, like the teaching assistants that we have. And I was doing that for a while. And I tried all the different rooms. And eventually I landed in the room that I like to associate myself with the most, the room with the EBD kids, emotional and behavioral disorders. And I was like, I'm home. And so once I got into that room, there was no getting me out. And since then, it's just been slowly like trying to figure out how do I get these children who are misunderstood and prejudged and not welcome? How do I create spaces for them so that instead of seeing, a kiddo that's headed for juvie, that you take a minute and listen and find out, like, yep, he might get mad sometimes and punch a wall, but he also paints greatly. He also writes greatly. He also codes and does all these other things, right? So that's how I kind of landed in education.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I know for the two of you, y'all have been well traveled even during your formative years. So you have a unique school experience that informs a lot of the work that you all do. But I'm wondering, when you think about your primary, secondary schooling, were there moments where you experienced any internal or external struggles with embracing your identity and your ability to show up as your full self?
Yeah.
Donica, you take this one.
Yeah, definitely. I often think back to my primary years, I think all the way through high school, and I don't think I can bring one, like, maybe even good moment. I know it seems sad to say, but I think all my experiences have definitely informed me as an educator. And when I think of my identity when I was younger, I grew up in Kenya. In fact, Sally and I, many, many months after we got to know each other, discovered that we went to the same school, which is interesting.
Wow.
But we had very different experiences, right? So we came
Yeah.
full circle. But it was a very, I don't think our schooling allowed for anything like identity or who are you as a person and all of that. It was very, very rote and one way, one way is the right way. And so identity didn't even occur, like, to me, to even look for it. And it's very much fear-based education, and you study because you don't want to get in trouble, and high expectations. And for me, I was an immigrant family, and within the class of refugees. So we lived here as, Kenya was our home that gave us safe refuge. So my parents couldn't be any more different than and our family couldn't be any more different than the people that I went to school with. But yet, we kind of all were struggling with the same thing, because, we were all, it was all fear-based. It was all like, we need to, stay out of trouble. So I think that having that experience to me has informed me a lot of what kids should not be exposed to, but also like the things that we seek, right? Which now I recognize reflecting on as an adult, if that makes any sense.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of same for me and Danica. The school that we went to, I guess you would say like middle to upper class, right? And my mom was a single mom struggling to put 4 kids through school. And so you would show up and people would have these fancy cars and, and you kind of just were on the outskirts of things. But when Donica and I talk about school, I tell her I had so much fun. But then one day I said, everything I tell you about the fun I had in school never happened in the classroom. I don't have a fun moment from being in a classroom. I don't have a teacher that I identify like, oh, this person impacted my life in this positive way. I don't. And then for me, that's it for the kids. I always tell Donica, if I meet this kid 50 years from now, I don't want them to be like, oh, there she is in like a negative way. I want them to run to me the way I always run to my kids, like, oh my gosh, how are you? Have you been? Where have you been? So I'm constantly saying, like, I'm planting seeds for that moment when we see each other 20, 30, 40 years from now.
Yes. And I want to stay with you for a second, Sally, because
Okay.
I know for you, I've had people on this podcast who ended up teaching in international schools within their parents' birth country or their home country.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, being an international school teacher in
Yeah.
your home country, it's
Yeah.
a very unique experience and very nuanced and complex in many ways. So I'm curious to know from your perspective what that's been like to be in that capacity within your home.
It's been the most beautiful experience. So most of my family up and left and they're in the States. And so even when I said, oh, I'm going to go teach in Kenya, I think everybody like moving to the US was like the top tier movement thing, right? And
Right.
so when announced now I'm going backwards and I want to go there, I think there's a lot of questions like why, like for what purpose, right? You've made it. You're in the U.S. You got it, and like coming back was just so fulfilling in so many ways, and also kind of slowed me down to understand that like I'm coming back with a different perception, um, different belief systems, different experiences. And I think I came in thinking it was just going to be open door, open arms, let's go, let's get it, right? But then when I got here and I would see things that I felt I could speak out about or I could push for, and I would see my fellow Kenyans like struggling with that, then I would start to have those conversations of why can't we do this, right? And at that point is when I realized like, oh wow, the learning curve is huge. And I came into it like we were all on the same playing field.
Yeah.
And I think I never thought of myself as having privilege,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I got here and just being, um, that was privilege, right? Then I started connecting with other teachers from different schools, and they would make fun of my accent, right? Because then you code switch and things, but when I get upset, like this is the one that comes out, and so they'd be like, "Oh, do you want to go on the patio?" And I'm like, "Leave me alone, okay? I'm trying." And they said even just that like gives you like a one up against us as we're entering spaces. And so I think my biggest thing for coming back home has been the excitement of experiencing it as a grown person because I left when I was so young, and like creating my own path, connecting with this country in my own way, and also because it's my passion. It's been a very interesting journey.
Yes, for sure. Because I know, like, I've had people share the latter parts of what you mentioned, where it's like
Mhm.
you get othered in different ways.
Mhm.
You may be able to speak the language and eat the same food, and even phenotypically, we all look the same. But
Yeah.
because of the fact that you had that Western exposure,
Yes.
now it's like, you too bougie for us, or like, you're stay over there. When it's like,
And
nah, we
Kenyans
can't
are
build together.
Yeah, Kenyans are very interesting. Like the language shifts, right? So like the we call it Shang. So it's a mix of like English and Swahili, and it changes from neighborhood to neighborhood, and it changes over the years. And so
Yeah,
like returning, you think you're using the word and you're being hip and you're being cool. And they're looking at you like, how long? How long have you been gone? Because that we haven't used since like and it's like, oh my
we
gosh.
done, we done upgraded. Like,
Literally. And Kevin don't give me a break. Like that thing keeps coming up. I'm ready for it to be done, right? But
yeah,
that was the piece that where I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it here. And we have a phrase that Kenyans use all the time, even when they're abroad. When Kenyans do something, they say, Kenya sihami. Like I'm never moving away from Kenya. I remember saying that when I'm in Minnesota, right? And now that I'm here, I'm like usually like, yeah, like Kenya sihami.
yeah, for sure. And then Donica, so I know for you growing up in Kenya, starting there, but then still having your connection to Ethiopia. And we'll talk more about that when we get to your book. I know there's some backstory to that as well. But I want to talk about psychological safety, right? When you have a third culture background like you do, and many of the students that we teach, and you're just trying to find spaces where you can belong and be connected to people, I'm wondering, how did your early childhood experiences shape your view of what it means to be in a safe classroom? And you started to touch on it a little bit when you were talking about your early upbringing.
You know, I can't mention a safe space without thinking of my eldest child,
Mhm.
who is also an inspiration. All my children are. My both of them have finished school, and I just have an eighth grader left, and I'm like, I hope I do right by you. I hope. But it's my childhood taught me what not to do and what you know, we all develop well, I can't say we all develop resilience, but we all have to at some point to be able to survive a school system, whether it's a really great one, whether it's a calm one, or what, because we all come to it with different experiences. We all have different things that happen outside of school that shape us who in that school, very, you know, in that structured environment.
Yeah.
I would actually go back to my son Noah, who teaches me a lot about how you know, your internal world can govern how you see the world. So sometimes we have students who come into our classroom who look like they're doing fine, like everything is going great and they're holding everything together, but actually they're not, right? When I'm thinking about your question and why am I so passionate about psychological safety, is because as an adult, I have been able to learn how to create that for myself. So thinking about, like, now I'm, you know, I've lived on this earth many, many more years than any of the kids that we're teaching. And it is only now when I'm realizing, oh, I can actually create this for myself. And what are the things that I need to do to be able to feel safe and feel good despite all the things that are happening to me? So it's really, I guess they call it metacognition, right? Thinking about what you're thinking. So then working backward from there, I just, as a grown-up, I went and tried to learn as much as I could about what are things that I can do in the classroom to be able to welcome anyone, like regardless of what comfortable or traumatic life you've experienced, you'll still come into this space and really feel good. And so I tried to learn as much as I could about that. But also it's about just loving kids. Kids know when you love them, and they know when you're like, you know, in the times when, and Sally like is my mentor in all these things, when I'm like, I don't really know what to do, how do I reach this kid? If you spend a lot of time bonding with them and they really truly know that you love them, even when you are, you know, you have to tell them some harsh things and draw some boundaries, they know that it comes from a place of love. And to build that, you have to work every day. It has to be in everything that you do, from the greeting that you give them when they walk in the door, to say, hey, you do not seem like you're doing okay today. What's happening here?
Yeah.
And you can see sometimes they notice, like, how did you know I was feeling that? It's because I watch you and I, you know, I try to learn about what you need, and really to refocus. Tell this to Sally every time too. Every day I come to work, I say, what is my purpose for going into this space? Why am I here? And really the reason why I'm here is to make sure that kids are as successful as they can be. And what I draw from my childhood is that I was, yes, successful, but that it was really the hard way, right? We can do it the easy way or the hard way. And
That's right.
there's many ways to be successful. So, you know, these are our future leaders. These are the people who are going to run big companies, you know, change the world in so many ways. So if we are not able to nurture them now, we are responsible for, you know, them going either way. And I don't take that responsibility lightly. But where I saw it really come to life is the first year I came into middle school, and Sally had a child in her classroom who was just so dysregulated. Like I didn't teach her at all. And then I think I was very new to middle school and very new to Sally. Let me just say that. I'll give you context. And she just said, can you have lunch with her? I was like, okay, I don't know how that will help, but let's do it. And, you know, that little bit of peace, and Sally can talk to you about that more, really taught me. I mean, she became more regulated, I think, and that became a safe space for her. And it taught me that actually safety does not mean you are the teacher for these particular group of children and this is your it's really a village, right?
That's
And
right.
it's tapping in and out, and, you know, I'm really tired now, I don't know how to help this child, can you do that? But then the child won't trust the other teacher you're handing them to unless they've developed a relationship with them. So we're all interconnected, and that's how our ancestors raised like that's how they gave the kids what they needed. And that phrase, it takes a village, literally, it came from the village. So if you study the ways of how villages work, it's everyone cares for the child, and the child at some point doesn't even know who's my mom or dad. They don't really care because they're loved by everyone. So that's
right.
really what I hope that we as teachers can do in every single space that we're in. It doesn't have to be just the classroom, if that makes sense.
Yes. So I know, so Sally Donica started to mention some of the strategies you've used to help students get better acclimated into their respective settings. So that's a
Yeah.
perfect segue into my question about some of the different ways in which you all help students build trust and a sense of belonging and that psychological safety within the ISK community, knowing that they're coming from different walks of life, knowing that they're coming with different abilities and different modalities. So, what are some of the ways in which you all have been able to do that within your context?
With Donica and many more other teachers that I work with,
Yes.
what we do all the time, every day, is model. We model safety. We model healthy relationships. We model how to have conflict and get out of conflict. We model good days, bad days, sad days, happy days. We model everything because I think you can tell someone, but you can show them better, right? So, like the
Mm-hmm.
student that I was talking about, Donica was super new to the middle school. But right off the bat, I mean, she was in the elementary school and we lightly crossed paths. Our school is huge. We're literally like three schools within one big school. Sometimes it's hard to get across the different divisions. So though we worked together and the paths crossed lightly, once we started working together in the middle school, it was more intentional. And just knowing what her beliefs were, like every time you talk to Donica, you're going to hear about her children. Everything that happens, she correlates to her children. I've never seen her operate with a child unlike how I've seen her operate with her children. And so, just that off the bat, at the time I was the LCE teacher, and it was important for me for my kids to feel safe. So, knowing that that's where she was coming from, I knew that saying, hey, take this kiddo, thank you very much. I think the part that she's not saying is we had had a rough morning. Like the classroom was tore out, up, all the way tore up. And I think the staff in the room were all tired. And this sweet child was the kind of child that would like not regulate and then feel really bad and get really down on themselves for not being able to regulate and taking care of themselves. And so, and a lot of the times when I was walking around the school connecting her to people, I would say, let's go to so and so's class and say hi to them. Watch, they're going to smile big. And so she would kind of lose herself in trying to find who was going to smile big at her saying hello. And I knew the classes that we could go and disrupt, right? I would say, we're going to walk by this class and we're going to say, hey, really loud and walk by. I wonder if they'll know who that was, right? You couldn't miss her. She had the cutest giggle ever. And
Right.
so those are the ways that I was like trying to get the community also to see her than just more than what we read on that IEP and what we saw when she was dysregulated. So it became our norm to walk and touch base with people and give her those entry points. So by the time I'm saying Donica take her, Donica had come and eaten lunch with us. She was a new teacher in the division and she had heard about this lunch bunch, which is another great way to connect children, especially when you're trying to get entry points with inclusion and not just in the educational setting, even with like social settings, right?
Yeah.
So first year I worked there, the sixth graders were coming up, and then I had some eighth that were going to nine. So everybody was new to whatever division they were going to. And we started this lunch bunch. And I just remember going to the assembly and telling the kids, hey, we have lunch. I know some of you are anxious and you don't know where you're going to eat or who you're going to eat with. And so just come. We're all going to come. And I'm new and I don't know anybody. And
Right.
I also bribed them a little. I brought lollipops. And I said, we're going to eat, we're going to get to know each other, and we get lollipops, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
teams never stopped coming. And even teachers came and never stopped coming. Teaching assistants came, bus monitors came. It just became the space. Everybody came to that space and it was home. So when Donica would come and drop in, sometimes she would even come on her planning time and you would see her walk up to the desk like, what are you working on today? What can I help with today, right? So when I'm telling that kid, like, you're going to go with Miss Merhazion, you're going to have so much fun. She also has a calming space. She's also a calm person. And I think because she exudes that all the time and she's very welcoming, that's how we've been able to play off of each other. So that connecting piece, the modeling piece, and then creating those safe spaces, and one person can do it. I'm not always going to have the answer. And so I think sometimes people come in, they say, oh, this is the LCE person and she knows everything. And I remember even like at my 6 month going to my director and saying, we need to collaborate with other schools because I don't want us to get into that space where we think that we're the sage on the stage. Because now other schools were coming from all over Africa and asking, what are you doing? We're hearing about this from the parents. And that's how we gauge if what we're doing is right. When somebody comes and says, my friend said that their kid, da da da, a positive thing, right? And so I remind myself every day, like, yes, I know that I've done this work for a long time, different capacity, high school, different programs, mental health, social emotional, all that. But I also know that I don't know everything. So when somebody like Donica walks in, I quickly get off that stage because I'm observing her to see what else can I add to my tool belt. When we came to your talk in Cambodia, we
Yes.
laughed with things to add to our tool belt. So we're constantly adding and building and rebuilding, learning to apologize when you're wrong. Kids don't get that from adults. And so, like, again, it's just modeling life. Well, that life centered, right? So we're modeling life constantly to everybody.
Mm-hmm. And then speaking about that too, when I went to your session, you
Mm-hmm.
and Donica's session, that was really the first time I had heard the term life-centered education.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking as someone who was in a special education setting as a child, had an IEP, worked
Mm-hmm.
in public schools where I was working with students who had moderate disabilities, anything from autism, ADHD, everything. So to be in this education field almost 2 decades in, and I'm hearing this term life-centered education for the first time, I was like, oh, okay, this is different. So I would love for you all, obviously, the abridged version, right?
Yes, yes.
To just share what exactly is life-centered education and how does it differ from some of the traditional inclusion models that we may be more familiar with?
So I think I can answer that going backwards because then it will feed into Donica, who plays a very important role in how we pushed out life-centered education because I didn't have those entry points before that,
Right.
right? So when I
Yeah.
think about inclusion, and Donica, you've done inclusion before, we're taking our kids and we're bringing them to a classroom and we're giving them accommodations or modifications within a general education setting with their typical peers. So that's the inclusion model. With the life-centered education program, you are taking a student who is at like a grade level age-wise, but not grade level with how they interact with their academics. So typically what we saw and what I experienced in the States, we would have these DCD, developmentally and cognitively delayed programs, where these kids would spend most of their days segregated from the school. We would see them maybe at lunch. You would see them for sports day carrying the flags, but you never saw like meaningful interactions with peers. So when I first heard of the life-centered education program from my director at the time, Heidi Laws, the way she presented it was, it's been done this way, and the vision is to go to where we include them more. We're building it. At the time, we only had an elementary one here at ISK, and so we were trying to build something for the middle school and the high school. And the one thing that convinced me to take this on was how she said a lot of siblings were being separated because their siblings who needed higher interventions could not enroll at our school because we did not have a pathway to offer them those supports. And
Yeah.
so coming on to create that pathway was like so beautiful, right? We're giving you life skills, we're giving you academic skills, we're giving you community. That to me was the thing that said, okay, I want to be a part of this, however I can do it. And then in collaboration with like the gen ed teachers. So for example, with Dawn, we had a sixth grader that we worked on together. And when this kiddo came on board, they said he was not going to be able to read. His diagnosis was dyslexia, super severe, and ADHD. And I think it had just been said he wasn't going to, right? And so I remember going into Dawn's classroom when she had first started and just seeing how she differentiated for kids. In her class, there's one kid like drawing pictures and telling the story of the thing they read. Next to them is somebody making a video and it looks hyper but super fun. And then you have the other kid that's like typing away pages and pages. And I was like, wait a minute. They're all working towards the same goal in different ways. And we didn't even have to ask. I didn't have to come in. Well, the IEP says, oh, it's the law. That's how we include equity. I didn't have to have a conversation with her at all. It just naturally happened. And so when I came to her and I said, listen, what's on paper and what I think I'm seeing kind of don't go together. And I also don't want to put any preconceived notions on this child. So for humanities, I'm stepping away. I'm going to follow you. And she said, what? Take it over, Don.
Wow. And that has always happened neither. So that's what's up.
Yeah. That was a very big responsibility, and we had to rise to the occasion. So we couldn't fail Sally, you know what I mean? But I think he's the one who really taught us what being very open-minded is. So if we go back to like how we define psychological safety, everyone has a right to it. Everyone. It doesn't matter what class you're coming from and all of that thing. And for the student that Sally is mentioning, he knew, like Sally mentioned, there was something we knew he could do more than what he was showing us or what his records had shown. So for him, safety meant like, can I just try? But then if we never gave him avenues to try and we told him, okay, either you're decoding the words or you're not, that impacts his psychological safety. He won't feel like he belongs. He won't feel like inclusion takes many different shapes. It's not only like having a physical body in the room and saying, I see you. It also is like, do you have academic access to the things, like everybody else? But what we did was just try and experiment. So we found a program. We mentioned it in our presentation. It's called Common Lit. So it provides students access to listen to the text as they're reading it. And most of the resources are free. I would say after this podcast, if you're able to disseminate resources to educators, this would be one of them. And the really cool thing about it is that when a student is answering questions on the teacher screen, you can see how many times they tried, and they just didn't answer this one. After 4 attempts, it just moves them on. And then as I was watching him, he had his headphones and then he was looking, and every single question he answered was correct. I mean, I ran to Sally and I was like, I don't know what I saw, but you need to come back here and we are making this, do this again. And it turns out his comprehension was so much higher. And if we kept giving him, kindergarten books and first grade books, I mean, he would have done what he needed to do, but would that have been fair? He would not have been happy. He would not have felt included. He would not have felt all of that. But I think like that is, it's not necessarily our ingenuity or something. It was Sally's openness to just trust that I could try. And then it was me just trying, like having the freedom to just figure out, okay, could that work or not? Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. But I think the kids see your effort in that you're trying. And even that helps them to feel like, that's the true meaning of inclusion, is that I'm going to make time for you, right? So, I mean, what we experienced with him, I think just really roller coastered into or snowballed into many other, like, okay, what if we try this program? What if we do this? How about you bring them only at these times, and then these times they can go somewhere else? So every student is different. Every year is different. Even teaching the same curriculum is never the same because of the kids who are in your room, right? So it taught us a lot about trust. So thinking about safety, it's not only kids that need it, we grown-ups need it as well. And if Sally had come in the room, like she was saying, hey, these are his goals, I expect you to figure out how to reach them, and this is it. I might not have felt safe to take risks and try, right? So it goes both ways. I think us grown-ups need the same kind of levels of safety and trust that kids do. Yeah. So yeah, it goes full circle. So he taught us a lot, and yeah, and he also taught us that we have fun working with each other, which is also good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we won't let each other go. Everywhere I'm like, where are you today? I'm not letting you go. But the more special thing about that, I want to say, I think Donica always says, and Sally did this and Sally did that. And I think the other piece is this woman's brain is wild. I come to her all the time and I'm like, listen, I know I can do this thing and I want it to look like this and I wanted to put it here and move it here. I'm like, thank you, present that to me. And
That's
then
right.
she'll go, come back, and she's like, is this what you wanted? I'm like, almost, one more thing. And then I go home and I'm like, how did she? I was like, I don't even know what I was asking for. But again, and that's the beauty of, like, she had a life outside of education. She purposefully chose education, and she brings all those skills that she had in the business world in her real life as her mom with the kids. She's taught with friends kids, and she pours that intentionally into kids and into peers all the time. So that's one thing I trust her so much with. I need to create this thing, and I'm going to tell you what I think it is, and you point me in the right direction. Initially, I would say, can you create it for me? And now I usually say, I'm going to start it, and then I'm going to add you, and then you tell me. Because I also want to learn from her so that I'm not constantly reliant on teach me, teach me, teach me, because I also want to teach other people and get everybody to where we can help kids independently.
Yeah.
The other piece I loved about putting my kids in Donica's classroom was how she took on our teaching assistants. Luckily, in our school, all our teaching assistants are licensed teachers. So
Hey.
they're licensed in Kenya, and most of them left their teaching jobs. And this is that thing I was telling you, where there's like a discomfort of returning and asking those questions of why, right? Because initially I come in and I'm like, this person had so much education. You have two
Right.
masters. Why are you a teaching assistant? Why can't, right? And there's those things that stop people from actually doing what they can because of rules and things per se. So I know, like, a lot of international schools will require you to have a degree or experience teaching in an international school before
Yeah.
you can teach in their international school. And a lot of times, I didn't even go to Donica's class because I looked at my TAs from day one and I said, you are licensed, just like I'm licensed, and I'm not going to know everything. I had one that was just magical, math and sciences. As soon as the person said, I do calculus, I said, thank you. You are our math guru. God bless you. Go forth and be great. And I never had to worry about math or sciences with our kids. We had another one that can teach reading, like, blows my mind, right? I'm watching this person teaching reading and I'm like, I'm writing down notes, I'm taking videos. How do I do it the next day? And putting those adults in spaces, for example, with Donica, who is very much so, here's a program they're doing, press here, do this, go. And seeing that TA going in there initially fearful of, am I going to be able to do this? And then walking away so empowered that they are running Common Lit themselves. They've taken professional development and are now, like, teaching it themselves within that program. Some of them, like, I even taken master's programs within those schools that are international schools that
Wow.
offer degrees in Kenya, because they
Yeah.
want to have the opportunity to get in the classroom. And I say a lot of them are ready to go. And it's like, open doors, give opportunities, take the fear away, and see the brilliance that comes with that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I want to keep you on for a second, Sally, before I go back to Donica, because when I hear Donica sharing all this love and giving you all these flowers, I can't help but wonder how your approach to inclusion has shifted as you've transitioned more into a leadership role. Because I know now you're head in the learning support department, and that wasn't the case when I first met you. So this is like a recent thing. So to transition into that role, how have you been able to continue to exercise that flexibility in your leadership with different teachers, not just Donica, but also other teachers that you collaborate with within your school?
Like, transitioning to the high school, First of all, high school was my first love always, right?
Sure.
And so transitioning back, because I feel like there you have these young adults, you can have genuine, open conversations, and you can kind of guide a little, and you can step back and let them take leadership and make decisions on their own, and you
Yeah.
get to be like that mama bear. So when I transitioned into like that learning support teacher role, as well as the head of department for learning support in the high school, um, I wanted to go in there and just have the team do what we do, because nobody goes into learning support because it's the easiest, most fun job all the time, right? You go in there, like I always tell Donica, okay, time to go do this hard work, right? It always comes from here. I wanted to just go in there and continue to like have a team that did that, right? And I think a lot of times we go to work as teachers and we focus on kids, 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 and we forget to check on the person sitting next to you, the person sharing the room with you.
That's right.
And that was super important for me to go in there and be able to say, I want to make connections with all my peers. I want to be able to say that we talk and we connect and we plan for kids and we pour into kids. And I want to be able to say, like, oh, I know that kid who's not on my caseload because I sit in this room and talk to this person and I can tell you about this kid. So I make it my business to know what my peers need. How can I show up for them? Because a healthy educator can then go into a space and work in a healthy way with children. So if I see Donica is having a hard day, I'm parking everything and I'm pouring into her and getting her ready to go and pour into those kids, right? And so that's the mentality that I come with all the time, no matter what position I'm playing. I take care of the adults that are with me. We go forth and take care of the students that come our way. We pour into the community. I never, like, there's some situations where you're like, oh, you're only supposed to have these learning support kids, right? And I have such a hard time turning kids away, because there's a reason why that kid showed up that day to ask you for whatever. And so I'm always like, I'm going to lean in today so that tomorrow you have a safe person, you have a plan, you have like taken over, and you can find pathways to get yourself what you need. So
Yes.
constantly we talk about that. Even with Donica, when we talk about leadership, right? We talk about pathways to leadership when we were in the States, and we talk about our pathways to leadership even here on the continent, and how it looks very different for people of color. And she
Mm-hmm.
always asks me, what's your purpose, right? What's the purpose of that?
Mm.
And grounding yourself in that every day, because there are days that are super hard. And I'm not the kind of person, she always says, take a mental health day, pour into yourself. And then I think like, but what if that one kid comes and I'm not there? What's going to happen, right?
Right. Yep.
And then I also have to say, but I've just said that we're a team and we can do this and we can take care of each other. And so then she challenges me and says, if you're saying we're ready, everybody should be able to take care of that child.
That's
So
right.
those are the different things as I'm going and doing more leadership type work. Just the psychological safety, right? How are my people safe around me? And everybody, not just the kids, not just the teacher sitting in the room with me. The person that helps me keep my room clean and functioning, is that person feeling safe and wanting to come into my space? Are my kids treating that person well? Because I don't want them to also leave trash because we have a cleaner. You clean up after yourself, because that's the
That's
person that's
right.
coming here that takes care of this room with everything that's in them: bus monitors, food service, groundsmen, everywhere. And so constantly we say we don't like leaving our rooms, because the walk from my room to Donica's room should take me 3 minutes. But it's that connection that you look for everybody. I'm saying hi to everybody. I'm checking in with everybody. If I don't see a smile on their face, are you okay? How's everything going? Come have lunch with me. Can I come have lunch with you? I'm going to Donica's, walk with me, right?
Yeah.
Constantly. And that's the thing that we focus on all the time. Are we good? Are the people around us good? And how far can we spread that goodness?
Oh, that's amazing. And I think it speaks to the workshop I did recently with SENIA Unplugged about the importance of having that ecosystem for
Mm-hmm.
our students. It's not just the one individual. It's not just the learning, the life-centered um,
Patient staff.
education support teacher that's doing all the work. No, it's your
Mhm.
gen ed teachers, it's your administrators, it's also your
Mhm.
paraprofessionals, your support staff, teaching assistants. Everybody plays a role in
Mhm.
ensuring that that child is whole and that child is getting all the supports they need throughout the day. So all that you are describing is basically all the stuff that I just talked about in that workshop for Unplugged. So I'm glad that you're able to bring up some of those ideas.
Mhm.
Now, I want to get to Donica because we got to talk about this book. We got to talk about Born at the End of the World. It's such a powerful um, topic, such a powerful novel
Mhm.
title. Like, as somebody that's written, my share of books over the course of the years, I know how hard it is to write one book
Mhm.
and how tedious the process is. So I'd love for you to just share with us a little bit about this book that's coming out soon. I know it speaks to your personal story
Mhm.
and parts of it. So I just want you to just have a chance to just talk about that, and as well as the inspiration that led you to even want to write this book.
Sure, sure. This might be the first public forum I'm ever talking about it, so it's
Oh
awesome.
wow, I feel
Yeah.
special. Wow, oh
I haven't
man.
even started talking about it yet. Only to like people I can see face to face. But it's been a long time coming, many many years. But
Yeah.
Born at the End of the World alludes to the name of a prison called Alembekan in Addis Ababa, which no longer
Mhm.
exists. So it sat on where the African Union building is right now, and that's the place that I was born. So
Wow.
it's a historical fiction novel, and I chose to tell it as fiction, but really most of the things in it are true. It's the story of my parents' lives and how they got through the Red Terror, that is, a really like very, very dark part of Ethiopia's history. So I'm Eritrean and Ethiopian. My dad is Eritrean. My mom was born in Ethiopia, but has lived in Eritrea all her life. And we have a very complicated history. But this part in this book, basically, what inspired me was that my kids are so far from the kind of life that their grandparents led, and the sacrifices that their grandparents made actually are enabling them to live a life of, I mean, comfort, of lack of fear and that kind of thing. And they didn't. They're so far removed from that. It just started as an essay to my kids, just so they know where they came from, and it just grew and grew and grew, and now it's a book.
Yeah, for sure. And this is coming out in February, right? Next year in
Yes.
February.
Yes, the worldwide release is February 17th, but it was
All
very,
right.
very important to me that it is released in Africa first. It's written by an African for Africans, so we are going to have lots of Nairobi special edition releases before the world sees it. So actually, in December, we have a few events planned, so anyone in Nairobi can get it. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that.
Awesome. And we'll definitely share that information
Thank
before
you.
we wrap things up. But before we get to that, I got one more question, and this is going to be the last time I get to ask this question on this podcast. This is the one that every guest has to answer, and it's simply, how do each of you stay true to the teacher in you?
Mm.
I want to go first because I want Donica to go last in this one because she centers me when I'm a very reactionary, inwardly person, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
bubble up and I'm ready to burn everything down, and then I'm like, so what do I need to do that doesn't get me in trouble? So Donica, a lot of times, is the one who centers me on that. So the thing that makes me stay true to me as a teacher is, again, what is my purpose? Constantly, what is my purpose? Is my purpose to show love and to have people go out, the kids go out into the world and also spread that love is my purpose, to be very welcoming and very intentional about how I enter all the spaces. Is my purpose that I want to meet all my kids that I've ever taught and have us run towards each other to say, how have you been? What's been going on with you? Instead of like ducking in aisles to say, oh my gosh, did you see her? She's down there. So constantly, what makes me straight true to me is that I want to be able to see my kids in the future, be it 2 days from now or 10 days from now, and have them still want to run to me as much as I always want to run to them.
Love it. Love it. And how about you, Donica?
I cannot speak about my purpose without thinking of my mother, who I don't know that I appreciated her as much, and my father as well, but especially my mother, because she sacrificed so much to make sure that I have like the best life possible. And whenever I think about maybe giving up on something, or this thing is too hard, I can't do it, I really do think of her and all the things that she did, and I say I can't fail her. And I do try to ground myself in, if she went through all that trouble to give me the life that I have, then I must pay that forward. So what am I going to do to make this day good for someone else? So if they're going through something, what can I do to help them to feel like, okay, they're getting a leg up, and then maybe one day they say, okay, you know what, Miss Merhazion did that for me, I have to pass that on to someone else. And I do think that it sets up a chain reaction when you're really clear about where you come from, and that's not a privilege I had when I was a kid. So I think if we're the kind of adults that kids need every day in our lives, and we can only be that way if we are surrounding ourselves by friends that also fill our cups, family that also fill our cups, so that we can go to our workplaces, to the kids that really need us with all of ourselves, and to stand up for what's right. I think kids, it's important. Sally talked about modeling earlier, and I think kids watch us all the time, and they can see when we fight for them. They can see, I think the biggest measure of whether a child values you or not is when you're disappointed in them and it really hurts them. And okay, I've made it. So
Yes.
yeah, just keeping that purpose clear. And I do say, like, I cannot have my mother's suffering be in vain. I will make her proud every single day. And my mother is truly just a beam of light, and she gives love everywhere she is. Everywhere she goes, you cannot be in her presence and not feel her love. So I just try to be like her every day. That's
Mm.
that's what it is.
You have to finish with our favorite quote from Mama. Finish. What is it?
Oh, to be like water. Yeah.
That.
I always tell
Okay.
Sally, my mom always says, water, whether it's gentle or whether it's really fast, has the power to move something. Just like it goes into a crack and can make a pothole. It can be a raging river and move, things. So we just have to decide if we're the gentle one or the rough one. But both are necessary.
Yes.
Very profound words. Very profound words. Oh, Sally and Donica, thank you
Thank
for this
you.
conversation. This has been beautiful. It's been amazing. I'm so sad that it's coming to a close. But
Thank you.
before, yes. But before you all go, I want to make sure you share with people how they can connect with you on social media. Uh, Donica, this is where you just pub up the book, let people know, particularly those in Nairobi, where they can go to check out the book talks and all the other events leading up to the release. So this is your space to, shout out these events.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm learning. Sally's teaching me to become more of a social media like aficionado. So I'm learning that. Well, you
Thanks.
can, yes, I'm not there yet. I'm learning.
It's all
But you
good.
you can find me on dmerhazion.com. That has everything that you need to know about the book. And it'll have my Instagram handles, Facebook, all of that good stuff is there. So dmerhazion.com.
And Sally?
I am only on LinkedIn. Sally
Ooh,
Ratemo. Yeah.
she
All
should very.
right. Oh, that was easy. So
Very.
people, yeah. So yeah, people, for the final time. For the final time, can't believe I'm saying this.
Oh,
We're
man.
going to end this episode of Identity of Educators Live. We still have one more episode, which is going to be our live stream. That's going to be happening next week. So make sure you all come and be part of the celebration. We're going to reflect. We're going to have past guests come to share their stories of how the podcast has impacted them personally. And I'm excited to hear these stories. So if you're able to show up, we'd love for you to be a part of it. It's going to be December 20th. Make sure y'all be there. And on that note, on behalf of Sally and Donica, I'm wishing you all good morning, good afternoon, good night for the final time. And we are going to do this again one more time. Hope you all are there. December 20th, y'all. All right. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.